Hello everyone, and thanks once again for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the hazardous weather graphic, we still have the flood watch out for the Kenai River south of Ski Lake, and that goes into effect again. Really not much change from what we had out yesterday. Late Monday and then through Tuesday or into Tuesday night, or sorry, Wednesday, actually into Wednesday, late Wednesday. So a 48-hour stretch there beginning late Monday. And again, that's for the Kenai River south of Ski Lake due to release or rising levels due to a dam release. Should reach about 13 feet or expected to late Monday night, and that could result in some minor flooding. Of course, low-lying areas would get it first, I guess, before the higher-lying areas would. Anyway, other than that, no watches, warnings, or advisories anywhere around the state for tonight, tomorrow, and probably tomorrow night as well. Satellite showing a weakening frontal boundary here, and you can see weakening each passing frame, getting more kind of holes in it, becoming a little more diffuse here. And the rainfall, not all that impressive with it, only about maybe up to a quarter inch falling at Cold Bay and maybe 0.2 of an inch at Chignik, and that was about it. All the other reports were just a few hundredths of an inch. And a little bit of moisture up towards St. Lawrence Island, nothing really reaching them. And then another dimmer band of moisture. Actually, it's lower cloud tops, why it looks dimmer, higher cloud tops here. But this area produced a little more precipitation than this front did, with anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of snow falling across southern Seward Peninsula. No reporting snow throughout much of the day or the afternoon today, beginning to taper off mid-afternoon. Otherwise, there's a lot of disorganized loose clouds here over the eastern interior, maybe some isolated flurries or snow showers thrown in there, but again, light, if any occurred, very light. And dry along the Gulf of Alaska, a few sun breaks into, the Kenai Peninsula areas eastward, and the southeast coast seeing some rain south, light rain or showers, and the showers continued over the northern areas, but more scattered and isolated in nature. And you can see that vividly the open cell Q swinging up into the panhandle there, and that's got a little bit more heavier rainfall occurred over the southern panhandle, is more scattered to the north. And looking at that again, out to the west, no big storms out there at all, just a big upper level trough and low pressure at the surface associated with this front. That's going to remain out there for the next couple of days, and probably maybe Tuesday or Wednesday that'll push eastward and pull some more moisture up into southern Alaska. But until then, not too bad. Here's that narrow rain band associated with this front here, and then showers out behind it. Really not all that much, just 0.03 of an inch fell at St. Paul today. Adak, 0.01 of an inch. Had some colder air coming down out of the Russian Far East here, and there was snow showers out at Shimya with temperatures in the mid-30s this morning into mid-morning, but they've risen since up to 43 degrees. Otherwise, just isolated snow showers in the Brooks Range area. And then we've got, again, for today, we've got, again, the rain southern panhandle showers scattering out and pretty isolated here, although 0.2 of an inch of precipitation fell today at the now famous Swanson River there in the Kenai Peninsula. Homer had about the same rainfall amount, otherwise everywhere else was much lighter. And for tonight, shower chances continue western Prince William Sound and maybe the Kenai Peninsula as well. Otherwise trending drier here for Cook Inlet and the Madawaska-Susitna Valley. Partly cloudy, partly to mostly for the Copper River Basin. Some isolated snow showers of this trough up over the upper Yukon Valley there to the Brooks Range, south of the Brooks Range into maybe the Koyukuk, and then rain with this system here over the southern southeast coast, and just isolated showers on up to the north with generally cloudy skies. No change over the Bering Sea. So this low complex out here with some weak troughs associated with it. So mostly cloudy, kind of showery, unsettled, but definitely light on the wind side of things. And for the outlook for tomorrow, this front pushes in, weakens. Probably could have just drawn it as a trough here. Could go either way, but weather either won't be too significant with it. Just areas of light rain or snow showers. Very light, generally less than 1/10 of an inch in most areas. May pick up 10th to 1500s here down in toward Kamishak Bay, Iliamna Lake, but showery for Kodiak. Starting to taper off later in the day. Showers Kenai Peninsula, partly mostly sunny here over the Copper River Basin, Matanuska-Susitna Valley up to the northwest there. Also the eastern north slope. And chance of rain continues over the southern panhandle. Look for some clearing over the northern areas. And for Monday, that system finally pushes off to the east, kind of redevelops and get some rain again over the southern southeast coast. Showers of rain or snow here with this trough into south central Alaska and the North Gulf Coast. Scattered snow showers over the northern and central interior. And another development here as this low in the Bering starts to pull off to the east. Lows tonight in the Brooks Range, lower teens, and lower teens also for the eastern North Slope and Arctic coast, otherwise near 20 out in the outer coastline, and lower 30s here along the southwest coast, otherwise 20s to lower 30s south central Alaska. Highs for tomorrow into the mid 40s to mid 50s here for the Panhandle, or lower 50s, lower to mid 30s Tanana Valley, mid 40s south central Alaska, lower 20s eastern Arctic coast, or the North Slope with upper 20s along the Arctic coast, 40s out here to the west in the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and then lows the following morning, 5 to 10, the Brooks Range, mid-teens for the eastern Arctic coast, 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle, and highs 20s in the north to 40s in the south.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Sunday morning, we've got some IFR here, Kodiak Island, northeast Bristol Bay, or actually along the Aleutian Range, in up toward and across Iliamna Lake, Kamishak Bay, VFR, Cook Inlet into the southern Susitna Valley, Matanuska Valley as well, should be VFR, and marginal for the Panhandle, marginal areas north of the White Mountains there on up across the Yukon there, Porcupine River, some IFR, back to VFR, and then marginal VFR again along the central western Arctic coast, marginal out here over the Bering Sea, next system with a batch IFR. Pushing on into the western Bering, kind of just dissipates here in the afternoon tomorrow. Otherwise, marginal VFR up to the southwest coast, IFR from Kuskokwim Bay, Cape Hermanzoff, and inland across Yukon Delta. Also some IFR lingering here, western Cook Inlet, up toward the Alaska Range mainly. Areas of marginal VFR mixed in with areas of VFR for the northern interior into the, it looks mostly VFR tomorrow afternoon for the Tanana Valley till you get over toward the 40-mile country, Copper River Basin, northern Panhandle becoming VFR, marginal VFR lingering down south. And then for Monday morning, even less marginal VFR over the southern southeast coast here. And areas of marginal VFR east side, a little bit of VFR here, especially from the Brooks Range and out to the north slope there in the east central interior. Narrow band of IFR here from the northern Koyukuk Valley back across the Kobuk Valley to White Mountain, Nome, Golovin, and those areas. And some patchy IFR here on the southwest coast, Alaska Peninsula, western Cook Inlet once again, mainly along the Alaska Range, possibly Portage, and the Alaska Peninsula. And for the afternoon, we've got an area of VFR here from the eastern Aleutians, kind of splitting the area, or splitting the Bering Sea. Marginal VFR to the west, marginal to the east. I think I got those reversed. And IFR for the southwest mountains, some IFR Brooks Range, looking on the north slope and the central Arctic coast. Possible IFR for the southern Panhandle, otherwise VFR. And for Anaktuvik, looks marginal tomorrow, same forecast for Adigan, marginal VFR at times. Probably the lowest conditions in the afternoon with a little more moisture slipping on up to the north. Lake Clark and Merrill, lowest flying conditions that'll possibly be IFR will be on the eastern approach, especially early on in the day. Rainy, marginal at times. Windy, marginal VFR possible, southern entrance, otherwise VFR. And for Isabel, occasional periods of possible marginal VFR flying conditions for that pass. And Mentasta, VFR just a chance of some marginal VFR south side. And for Dehne, looking good, VFR all day long. Portage, marginal VFR. Chilcoot and White starting out marginal, and then probably by mid to late morning becoming VFR, and that'll last through the afternoon. Freezing levels across the southeast coast here. Surface just north of the border to 2,000 to 4,000 feet as you slip on south. 2,000 feet here across southern Alaska. Surface hugging the coastline again, especially out here along the Bering Sea. And not much gradient out there over the Bering Sea, or I meant the Arctic coast. And icing-wise, just a couple of areas of minimal icing threats here. The Alaska Peninsula area mainly, and then here across the Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, diminishing as you head west. And another area here over the southern panhandle, above about 5,000 feet in all counts, rime locally mixed, but mostly all light or none at all. And for the jet stream here, pretty good jet coming across the Pacific Southwest, sort of splits right through here, the stronger branch cutting in near or south of the Queen Charlotte's, weaker one with some weak ridging over the eastern interior tomorrow, and a big trough over the Bering Sea. 9,000 feet, we've got weak low here just north of Kodiak Island, and southeast winds 10 to 20, 15 to 20 here into the Gulf, pretty light, 5 to 10 knots western interior, about 15 as you head east here. 20 knots lingering there in the eastern Boulevard Sea coast. Light winds over the panhandle, 5 to maybe 15 knots and close to the low center. And a big low out here over the Bering Sea, but not much of a wind field with it. Westerlies 15 to 20 over the Aleutians. And down to 3,000 feet, we have another weak low at this elevation, shows up there near the Alaska Peninsula. 20-knot winds on the south side of that, away from the peninsula though. But the Aleutians, 20 knots, central and western areas. Pretty light here over the Bering Sea, east side. 10 knots. Maybe up to 15 St. Lawrence Island. Light winds over the interior. Light 5 to 15 knot winds over the southeast coast. And maybe 25 knot winds here over the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And given that, I threw in some turbulence up there. Light to isolated moderate chop below 4,000 feet there, eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise pretty smooth everywhere else. And after the marine forecast, or after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
You guys got everything tied down back there? Yeah. Yep. We're going through the lee of St. Elias, so there might be some turbulence.
Fasten seatbelt sign on.
Well, who am I to tell you what to do?
There are tens of thousands of glaciers in Alaska. Some stunning cliffhangers, others wide glaciers that come down to meet the ocean tides. Some, like this one we flew over in August, are easily visible from low Earth orbit and are mesmerizing from 1,000 feet above, and have trees growing on top of their soil-laden boundaries. Those glaciers, although they represent only a fraction of the world's ice, are contributing much more than their share to sea level rise. Chris Larson and his colleagues have repeatedly measured 220 of them in a small single-engine otter, measuring their height with lasers and their depth with radar, and watching them change from season to season and year to year. But Alaskan glaciers are also different. We're only just figuring out how they all behave. Data from flights like these, part of NASA's Operation Icebridge, can help fill the gaps. Chris and radar specialist Martine Trufer are both from the University of Alaska Fairbanks and both seasoned Alaskan pilots. But they rely on their good friend and legendary bush pilot Paul Kloss and his 35,000 hours in the cockpit to fly the incredibly demanding flight lines the mission requires.
And does it help you guys being pilots too?
I would like to think so, but watching Paul fly and seeing what he does, it's kind of like trying to learn quantum mechanics in kindergarten.
You know, I can fly my airplane around, but just seeing what Paul does in this extremely challenging environment in the mountains while trying to follow a specific flight line at a specific altitude above ground, negotiating winds, topography, maybe occasional low-level clouds that you have to get around, and just managing all that is just several levels above what I could do as a pilot.
Well, I think the first time I came here to this park, I was probably 4 years old with my father. I've been blessed to be able to fly in lots of places in the world, all over the place actually, almost every continent. I guess I'm always looking for some place that might be better than this, but I haven't found it.
Paul's plane is about 60 years old and is the first single-engine Otter ever retrofitted with a 1,000 horsepower engine, which makes takeoffs feel effortless and gives Paul the ability to negotiate wild terrain, which he certainly did during the first 2 incredible science flights of this campaign. And with sunny skies and relatively calm air, we covered 3 vastly different pieces of ice. While Paul fueled up the plane, Chris gave us a preview of the day's science and scenery.
So it has one of the greatest coastal reliefs anywhere in the world. So it's between the ocean and the summit of Mount St. Elias, which is 18,008 feet high. It's less than 10 miles. There's a stupendous amount of mountain right off the ocean. It's hard to beat it anywhere in the world. It might be the prettiest for me. It's absolutely stunning. From here in McCarthy, we'll cross one of the bigger precipitation gradients in Alaska too. Here it's about 10 inches of precipitation a year, and we'll go over to an area where it's on the order of 200 inches per year. So it's from one of the driest parts of Alaska to one of the wettest parts of Alaska in about 45 minutes flight time.
Whoa, that's pretty good.
That's awesome. You want to do Tyndall next?
Sure, where you want?
If the winds are calm now, might as well grab it.
First, we came to the rugged landscape of Icy Bay, which not that long ago wasn't a bay at all. It was filled with ice. Tidewater glaciers in this region can make dramatic advances and retreats as they feed on high rates of snowfall and then retreat as they're melted by warm ocean waters. Like the Tyndall Glacier seen here, most of these glaciers have retreated dramatically over the last 100 years. But nearby Yahtzee Glacier, after years of retreat, is currently the most rapidly advancing glacier in Alaska. Overall, though, the Icebridge Alaska surveys, from the Denali region in the north to the Juneau ice field in the southeast, have documented pretty substantial thinning of glacial ice. Areas seen here in orange and red show between about 10 and 15 feet of thinning per year.
1,200.
The nice waterfall up there from the hanging ice.
When we very first started profiling this, Paul, this gravel fan in the one in the valley next to it didn't exist.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at all the good landing spots here.
Yeah,
There's no place to land here before.
no, it was deep water.
After covering several of Icy Bay's glaciers, given that it was time for lunch, just like that, we landed in this unforgettable spot. Flying eastward, leaving Icy Bay behind, we came to the mighty Malaspina, one of the Earth's great examples of a Piedmont glacier that spills out like pancake batter onto a broad plain as it approaches the sea. It surges at uneven intervals, creating dramatic patterns on its surface as it distorts the moraines of rock and soil borne along by the glacier. The Malaspina is less dynamic than the Yahtzee and is only melting at about the average rate for Alaska, but that could change quickly.
It has the potential for being one of the bigger geographic evolutions in Alaska. Certainly My son will be able to witness some big geography changes there. There's potential for it being connected with the ocean through some narrow lagoons, estuaries, which would take a little bit of coastal erosion, but it's not too hard to imagine that where the Malaspina Glacier is now could become a large bay.
The data that Martine's radar provides could reveal how vulnerable the Malaspina is to melting by the nearby ocean. Here we see the radar returns from the surface of the glacier, and here is something that Chris's lasers can't see, the rocky bed of the glacier, giving us both clues as to what's happening under the ice, as well as a measurement of its thickness. Finally, we came to the Yakutat ice field, 300 square miles of absolutely doomed ice perched high in the mountains. Researchers even debate how this ice field came to be at all, since in its current configuration, it's hard to imagine how it could capture enough snow to form glacial ice. And so, even if the Arctic weren't warming faster than the rest of the planet, this area would be likely to melt within a century or two. But with many other glaciers, it's easier to see the connection between a warming planet and ice loss. Thanks to data from IceBridge and other surveys, we now have a good estimate of the current rate of loss from Alaskan glaciers, 75 gigatons a year. While airborne observations over Alaskan glaciers have provided a rich record of change in the area, those efforts are now augmented by NASA's newest ice measuring tool, IceSat-2. With 6 laser beams of its own, and orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes, the satellite will carry on the record of Alaskan change. For their part, Chris and his team will continue to do their surveys for at least the next 2 years, helping to validate the IceSat-2 data and make further detailed observations over the stunning glaciers of Alaska.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Hard to notice, but a little bit of growth up here to the north and a little bit of drift here from east to west due to the wind direction. And also looks like a little bit of growth down in this area. Otherwise, about the same pattern as expected for the next 4 or 5 days, generally drifting from east to west due to the winds. And again, by another week or so, or 5 to 7 days, expect some new ice to start forming, especially south of the Barrier Islands along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for the coastal water forecast here for the south coast of the Panhandle, small craft advisories tomorrow. East winds 25 to 30 knots, seas up to 12 feet, but much lighter winds and seas a little lower up here to the north, with just southeast winds on the extreme north coast, seas down to 7 feet. Clarence Strait, southeast 15, otherwise central northern inside waters north at 15. And for Lynn Canal, north 10 for Monday, with north winds at 15 for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait, though, holding on to a southeast breeze at 15 knots, northeast 15 on the south coast, seas 8 to 10 feet, north to northeast 10 knots on the north coast. Prince William Sound, northeast at 10 knots with 2-foot seas tomorrow. Pretty good there. And east winds 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast, as well as Kamishak Bay, east 15 for the Barren Islands with 6-foot seas, and Cook Inlet, northeast 15 to 20. Outlook for Monday, northeast winds at 10 for Cook Inlet with 3-foot seas or less. South, Kamishak Bay at 10 knots. Same forecast for the Barren Islands, light southerly winds. And southeast at 10 knots for the western North Gulf Coast. Over toward Middleton Island, look for southerly winds at about 15, and east 15 now for Prince William Sound, seas up a little to 3 feet. And for Kodiak Island here along the east side, west 15. That'll extend all the way down to Castle Cape, and then the Alaska Peninsula, south to southeast winds at 20 knots and south winds at 15 for Bristol Bay. And moving ahead to Monday, here for the Alaska Peninsula, southerly winds, not too bad, 15 to 20 knots, and that's about it. It's 5 to 6-foot seas. Bristol Bay, south winds at 20, 4-foot seas. And then we've got 15-knot winds here from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, southeast 15, east side of Kodiak, Shelikof Strait, southerlies at 10. And for the Fox Islands, west 10 to 15 knots, kind of take a split here on Unalaska Island, with the westerlies taking off at 20 knots south of the island, north side 15 out of the south, and northwest 20 for the western Aleutians. And then we've got small craft advisories out here from Shimmy and Attu all the way into the north side of the Atka, Adak, and Atka Island areas here, all at 25 knots, a little lighter on the south side, but seas running around 8 to 9 feet or 7 to 9 feet. Fox Islands, west-northwest there for Unmak Island, and then southwest to northwest for Unalaska Island, but only 15 knots in all areas there, 4 to 6 foot seas. Southwest coast, light winds tomorrow from the south at 10 knots, north 10 for the Pribilof, southeast 15 St. Matthew Island, and east 15 Norton Sound. Add 5 more knots for St. Lawrence Island. Monday, northeast 15 Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, northeast 20 north side of the Nunivak Island area there along the Yukon Delta coast. Small craft advisories for the Kuskokwim Delta coast there at 25 knots from the southeast, light northerlies for the Pribilofs. Up along the Beaufort Sea, well, on the east side here, we've got small craft advisories continuing from actually the central coast all the way to demarcation point, 25 becoming 30 knots, seas at about 10 feet, so lose the gales at least. And for the western coast, east at 10, southeast winds at about 10 there, Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, and south of Cape Thompson, east at 15. And for Monday, northeast 15 here, also for the western coast, central coast, and east side, all east, 25 knots for continued small craft advisories. For tonight, this system pushing in will nudge some rain up over the southern panhandle. Should be light amounts, just isolated scattered showers to the north. Not too bad here over the interior, maybe a little more scattered flurry or shower activity, but whatever falls with this trough over the upper Yukon Valley will be quite light. Scattered light showers here along the coast with that weak trough, maybe Kodiak possibly, and showery out over the Bering Sea. For the outlook on tomorrow, very weak trough or front, just areas of light rain along that boundary, mostly of rain, Kamishak Bay, Kodiak Island, but light. Dry over the southern interior, isolated showers of Brooks Range, back to dry conditions on the Arctic coast, and chance of rain southern panhandle. Monday, shaping up, more rain over the southern southeast coast, otherwise not much change elsewhere.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.